I think what's important for those of us who struggle with saying no is understanding that you are human. And everyone who's coming to you, who's always relying on you, they need to understand that you are human just as much as they are. So there are going to be times where you can't be the person that they might, know you to be, because you have ebbs and flows in life. You're not always on a high. You're not always going to feel like talking. You're not always going to feel like helping out. And there's no reason why you should feel guilty about when those moments occur. Hey y'all, it's Megan May, and this is Transparency, where we keep it real about our growing pains and all the beautiful moving parts of life that may not be the most glamorous, but shape us into who we are today. So if you're ready for some introspection and evolution, go ahead and lock in by hitting the subscribe button. And if anything I say resonates with you, you can leave me a comment and or a like so I know we see each other. So last week we talked about some things that we need to learn to let go of, things that I personally found were things that were holding me back, and things that kind of deterred me from being my best self, from approaching my goals wholeheartedly. And so I wanted to kind of touch on something else that we need to really implement in this year and moving forward in order to be our best selves, in order to achieve and attain our goals and live out those dreams that we've been dreaming of, those visions that we've been thinking of for so long. And this is something that I've definitely touched on in past episodes. I kind of grazed over it. I went in depth, but I wanted to circle back to the power of saying no. And not even just saying no, but saying no without guilt, because I feel like that's really one of the most important parts about learning how to say no, is not being guilty when you have to say no, because you're preserving your peace, because you're prioritizing yourself. And I was thinking to do a selfish era series, but I know the word selfish has negative connotations to it, so maybe more so I said I definitely was going to do something on self-love and self-care, and I think I'll dedicate the month of February to that, because that's Valentine's Day, and so it's a whole bunch of love in the air. I mean, for the first half of the month at least. But yeah, I want to touch on prioritizing yourself, loving yourself enough to say no. Last week it was about loving yourself enough to let go. Today is about loving yourself enough to say no. And this episode is basically for any of you that feel like you're drowning, that feel like, you are overcommitting yourselves and overextending yourselves to those that are in your life, whether it be your colleagues, your peers, your loved ones, whoever that you feel like you might be super committed and dedicated to, but at your own detriment. That's who this episode would specifically be targeted towards, because I want us to really put things into perspective. In order for us to have the best year, I really want us to really buckle down on things that we've been letting slide for too long, and we've been neglecting ourselves in certain ways by not knowing how to say no, or by feeling so guilty that in saying no we kind of backpedal and go back on the promises that we've made with ourselves in order to satisfy and please others. So definitely stick around for the entire episode to learn practical ways to incorporate this in your day-to-day, as well as knowing the benefits of no longer being a people pleaser, knowing the benefits of how to say no and when to say no and those type of things. So for the sake of putting things into perspective, I'm going to take a different approach. This episode, I'm going to take a storytelling approach, and the person of my story, the main character of my story, we're going to call her Ashley. And Ashley is someone who always says yes. People feel like she's dependable, she's reliable. They always feel like she's the one to call when they're going through something, when they need an extra hand on board at work for a project, when they feel like they're drowning, they feel like she's their savior. And so Ashley always comes through for everybody else. And she also feels like, because she knows she takes on more than she probably needs to, and because she knows that people think she's dependable and reliable, she feels like she's strong. She feels like she's adaptable. She feels like, nothing can break her. But because she continuously overextends herself, she notices that she's starting to feel drained. She's starting to feel burdened. She's starting to feel like she lives a little bit on edge and kind of burned out every single day because she overcommits and she does so much for others. And in ways, by doing stuff for others, she's neglecting herself. She's not prioritizing her own needs, her own desires, her own goals. Things are being put on the back burner because she has no time. She has little to no energy to dedicate to what she needs to dedicate to for herself. And so think about, if you're Ashley, are you the person that at work everybody feels like, oh, this person will help me if I'm falling behind, oh, this person is going to volunteer if I go talk to them, we need one more person on board? Or are you the friend who everyone feels like they can call on because you're so reliable, you're so dependable, you know, even when you don't have the emotional capacity to really offer yourself, you're still offering yourself in ways that you don't necessarily need to in that moment, but you're scared of how somebody is going to receive you, saying, hey, you know, I love you, I know that you're going through something, but I also have too much going on to offer myself. I have too much going on for me to really show up for you in the best ways that I can, or even in the ways that you might expect me to. I think what's important for those of us who struggle with saying no is understanding that you are human. And everyone who's coming to you, who's always relying on you, they need to understand that you are human just as much as they are. So there are going to be times where you can't be the person that they might, you know you to be, because you have ebbs and flows in life. You're not always on a high. You're not always going to feel like talking. You're not always going to feel like helping out. And there's no reason why you should feel guilty about when those moments occur, because especially in the event that you're always showing up, you're always doing something, you're always happy to help, when you take those moments to yourself, everyone should be understanding. But there are going to be certain people that might try to guilt trip you and try to make it seem like the one time you said no, you're being, selfish and inconsiderate, and how could you, and pretty much try to shame you for putting yourself first. But it's important to build confidence. We definitely have a video on confidence, so if you haven't seen it, definitely go watch that video, because I think that was one of my favorite episodes to date. But when you have the confidence in who you are as a person, you're not going to allow people to shame you or guilt trip you into feeling like you have to bend and just be super flexible with the boundaries that you set in place. You're going to know that you're putting these boundaries in place for the sake of not even just yourself, but having a healthy relationship with the people that count on you. Because how great of a person are you going to be when you're literally on your last leg and you have nothing left? Don't you think that they're more than likely, if they're just takers, they're going to walk away from you once you get to that point anyway? So why not just preserve yourself as much as you can? Why not just prioritize yourself, your feelings, your mental health, and all of the above, for the sake of being able to show up better for yourself and for those that you love? So a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, I just want you to think, are you Ashley? Are you that colleague, that friend, or even that family member that everyone feels like, oh, I can hit her up, she's going to support, she's going to send me some money, she's going to be here for me to vent about how our cousin doing X, Y, and Z, and I know I can call on her, because regardless of what she has going on, she's going to drop everything to listen to me, to cater to me, to offer to come help. She's going to be there. Are you Ashley? If so, definitely listen up, because it's nothing wrong with being a person that is very much generous and giving and is a provider and just always willing to help and happy to be there for others. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But at what cost? We talked about this last week. At what cost? Being a good person comes at a cost. And I'm not at all advising anybody to not be a good person. But at what cost? What is it costing you? What trade-offs are you making in order to be perceived as a good person? Because even if you are a good person, that doesn't even necessarily mean that everybody is going to identify you as a good person. Some people might feel like you're not a good person if you don't do every last thing that they're asking you for. Some people might feel like you're not a good person just because your values don't align, your morals might not align, and so they feel like what you think is right is wrong. So it's not even always about being a good person. It's more so about being perceived as a good person. And for those who care about perception, I mean, everybody cares about perception to a certain degree. I know I've spoke about how I just don't care about what other people think of me, but that's for like when people are making rumors or people think like, oh, she's this, she's that. But perception from the standpoint of, oh, she has a kind heart, she has a giving spirit, she's, easy going, or she's mild tempered, things of that nature. Perception actually does matter, because the way that people perceive you can determine what opportunities that you're presented with, can determine, the relationships that you build, the bonds that you have, and the things that you share with people. And you definitely need a community to get through this world. So instead of feeling like, oh, because I bend over backwards and I do all these things for other people, so I'm strong, I'm adaptable, and taking on more than you need because you feel like that's stroking your ego, or you feel like that's making you feel like you're needed. A lot of times people just want to feel needed. But you don't have to feel needed if you know that you're important, if you know your worth. And so I really want to lock into that and kind of change your perspective of feeling like you pretty much deteriorating over time because you're overextending yourself and overcommitting yourself, is you showing your importance in this world to other people. You are important because you have a purpose, and your purpose could be very much to help others, or to serve in some form of capacity, but at what cost? On this journey of loving yourself, of prioritizing your self-care, you can't be worried about who's going to walk out of your life. People are intended to come and go. And so, the cost might just be a couple of relationships that weren't necessarily valuable because they didn't really see anything in you. They were there because of what they can get from you. They were there because of what you offered to them, and because, quite frankly, you might just be a dummy where they just know like, oh, she's gonna do it, I could just ask her. So if you're feeling like, you're drowning in obligations, you feel like you've overextended yourself, you don't really know how much more you can take on, you don't really know if people genuinely care about you, care about your well-being, because everything is about them. Every time they call you, it's about them. You don't know like where you really stand in your relationship, or how much they genuinely care for you or about you, because it's always about them. And when you do possibly try to, reciprocate the energy, so now you're the one going to them for advice, or you're the one that needs a shoulder to cry on, and they're nowhere to be found, or they always seem too busy. If you feel like any of these type of scenarios pertain to you or resonate with you, then listen to the tips that I have here. So the first way that I want you to incorporate saying no is in small stake situations. And small stake situations mean things that really shouldn't present much challenge. Like, you shouldn't feel guilt for saying no to these type of situations. So the first thing that I feel like is a small stake situation, or a big thing that I feel like is a small stake situation, is saying no at work. And I feel like that might come as a surprise to people, because I feel like at work everyone is trying to, well, a lot of people, I won't say everyone, but a lot of people are trying to create this illusion, if you will, of being like this star that everybody just feels like is so great because you're so knowledgeable or you're so helpful. And while that's cool and everything, people are going to take advantage of you. I've seen it myself at my job. Like, there's been several instances of people getting let go who would bend over backwards for the sake of the job, for the sake of the business. They're doing more than going above and beyond. But policies are policies, quote unquote. Policies are policies, rules are rules, and they're supposed to be followed and not bended or broken. And so, in those type of situations, it's kind of disheartening to see that people that literally have dedicated so much of their time, so much of their effort, their attention, their energy into this job are being let go. But let's look at an example of how you can set firm boundaries while also still being, honored for coming through every time somebody needs you and being helpful and being dedicated to your job. So let's say a colleague comes and they're asking you if you can help them with a project, or it could be something even more simple than that. Somebody from your job is throwing a fundraiser and they're wanting to know if you'll be available to help. Will you be available to volunteer? And you have a huge workload. You probably also have obligations outside of your job that you have to dedicate some of your time and attention to, and you really just don't feel like you have it in you. All you have to do is say no. All you have to do is say no. Will they be disappointed? Possibly. But if it's not your actual job, there's no way that you can get in trouble for saying no. In fact, they might not even ask you anymore and leave it to you to be the one to offer yourself. But if you're always saying yes, every time somebody needs help, you're putting your own plate on the back burner and you're saying yeah, and you're overcommitting, you're overextending, then you're putting yourself in a predicament where it's, for one, always going to be expected of you to say yes, and it's going to be harder to say no when you feel like you absolutely need to. But also, you're putting yourself in a situation to dishonor yourself, because now your own obligations, your own work probably won't get the full commitment that it needs, probably won't get the dedication that it deserves, but you're putting all of this other energy that you could be putting on your own work into something for somebody else. And that's not going to look good. You can't make the excuse of, oh, I slacked off a little bit, or, I didn't get what I needed to do completed because I was helping out with X, Y, and Z. Well, X, Y, and Z was optional. And if you said no, I'm pretty sure if they needed help that bad, they were going to find somebody else to help them. So in those type of situations, I feel like that's very much low stake, and you should be able to say no, because you can't get in trouble for saying no. It's not your job. And like I said, I feel like a lot of the times people that are people pleasers and that don't know how to say no, or they feel guilty about saying no, they're worried about disappointing the person that they're rejecting, in a sense, rejecting. But you also have to realize that people are going to be disappointed. You can't save people from being disappointed, because even if you help somebody, you might not do the things that they want you to do the way that they want you to do them. So disappointing other people is, quite frankly, inevitable. And so the more that you practice saying no, the better you'll get at it, and you'll understand that disappointing others is cool. It's a cool price to pay if it means having, your energy and your time for yourself, and having the opportunity to present yourself in situations where you feel like you do have that extra bandwidth and you can, provide a little helping hand here and there. But definitely don't overdo it. Don't overdo it, because it's not necessary. You're probably not gaining anything from it. If anything, you might be losing from it. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are people who very much are appreciative, and they'll give you the recognition, they give you the acknowledgement, but again, at what cost? So always ask yourself, when you're thinking about saying yes to something, whether it be an opportunity or just be something for somebody else, ask yourself, if I say yes, what is the cost of my yes? Another way to exercise saying no is to use the broken record technique. And this is something that I recently learned about in doing a little bit of research of how to implement saying no without feeling guilty. And the broken record technique is simply this. Say your friend calls you, right? They call you because, I don't know, they're going back and forth with their ex. Because I feel like this is something that's very much silly and very much don't need your immediate attention. So your friend call you because she's going back and forth with her ex. She doesn't know, what to say. She doesn't know what to do. And you've had a long day. all day you just been thinking about getting home, unwinding, probably eating your favorite food, watching your favorite show, reading your favorite book, you know, just having some me time and being able to have the opportunity to pour back into yourself. And so they call one time, you don't answer. Call again, don't answer. Call a third time. Now, if you know me in real life, you know that would have never happened because my phone live on D&D. Highly recommend. But if you are somebody for whatever reason that, you know, you're probably addicted to your phone, or every time you have a notification, every time your phone rings, you feel like you have to pick it up, you have to address it, everything is urgent for you, then cool. Once you get that call, I would say the second time, honestly, but I feel like people that call more than 2 times are kind of crazy. If it's not an emergency, there's no reason why you should be calling more than 2 times. After the second time, leave a voicemail, leave a text message, and go about your business. They'll get back to you. So if you that person, then please change that. But anyways, the third ring, she picks up. Hey girl, what's up? Girl, let me tell you. You know how we be. Let me tell you. And she start carrying on. Hold on, girl. I just, you know, I had a long day. And, you know, I love you. But I don't got time for this right now. Or if you want to say it a little bit more gentle, you could say, I love you. And I feel like you have it in you to figure this out. But right now, I'm not available to help you. I don't have the mental capacity to help you. Especially if it's a situation, because we all have friends who, you know, they are in a cycle of the same conflict with the same person. I don't have the capacity to help you today, love. Like, I've had a long day. I just need some time. And you've been blowing up my phone, so that's why I decided to answer. But, like, I have nothing for you today. I have nothing. Like, I'm not of any help. I don't want to hear this. I mean, that's not necessarily gentle, but that's just what I would say. You know, I don't really want to hear this right now. We've been through this so many times, and I'm not judging you. I love you, and I also understand that ultimately you're gonna do what you want to do. And if it's something like urgent, like let's say it's not their ex that's, you know, causing them to call you with the drama. Let's say they just recently got dumped. They got broken up with. You know, girl, I see you keep calling me, but I really just don't have it in me to be a good friend right now. Like, I am at my wits' end myself. And so I have nothing to offer you. And I promise, like, I'm going to get myself together today and I'll give you a call tomorrow. But, like, please just understand. And what I want you to notice, and in my response to that situation, I didn't necessarily apologize. And it's okay to apologize if you're inconveniencing somebody, but an inconvenience would be in a situation for instance, like let's say you over committed to something. So you told one friend that you would meet her at the park for yoga. You told another friend that you would help her move. You told another friend that you'll be available for dinner. And it's probably not necessarily at the same time on the same day, but maybe they're back to back. And, you know, you go to one and you feel like, oh, let's say the event started late, like the yoga event started late. And now you can't help your friend move. You can't meet your other friend for dinner because you're already here with your one friend. You don't want to just ditch her and go to something else. You know what I'm saying? So that's an example of an overcommitment. In that instance, it's like, okay, you overcommitted possibly because you were overextending yourself because you was falling into people pleasing. But you can apologize for any inconvenience that it may cause. Or, you know, just for, you know, saying that you were going to be able to meet your friend for dinner. They probably blocked off their schedule so that you guys can catch up and go to dinner. And now you're canceling low-key last minute. So you can say, you know, I apologize for standing you up or canceling on short notice. But I am at something else that I committed to and I overcommitted myself. But I'm sorry. And I'll make it up to you. Plain and simple. Again, people are going to be disappointed, but you can't focus on the disappointment, and you have to exercise saying no. You have to exercise being able to prioritize your own overall well-being and your own overall mental health. So going back to the example of the phone call, you know, saying I don't have it in me to be a good friend right now, I'll call you tomorrow, or I'll call you when I feel better. Like, that's allowing the person to know, like, it's not that you don't want to talk to them, but you literally have nothing to offer. You're of no use. You're literally of no use. What am I doing on the phone with you? You crying, I'm crying, you angry, I'm angry, you annoyed, I'm irritated. What use? Like, what is the purpose of that? And I understand misery loves company, but like, we doing better this year, guys. Like, we just don't have room for that type of behavior anymore. So, you know, if the person persists, let's say, we'll go back to our character Ashley. So Ashley on the phone with her friend. She telling her friend, like, girl, I don't have the capacity right now. Like, you know, I trust that you're going to make the best decision. If you really, really need this help, can we just talk tomorrow? Because I just feel very much overwhelmed and I don't have much to offer you right now, but you know, I do love you. And I keep repeating love. You don't have to say this part, obviously, but like, this is how I talk to my friends. You know, I do love you, but I just don't have nothing to give you right now. Like, I am completely drained myself. I'm overwhelmed, I'm overstimulated, and I just need a moment to myself. But girl, I really need to talk to you. You could take a pause. I understand, but I don't even have the capacity to listen. I don't want to hear that right now. Like, I really just want to sit in silence. I really just want to take some deep breaths, journal, watch a movie, cry, go take a long bath, go take a long shower, go take a walk. I really, whatever it is that you feel like you'd rather be doing, you could say that. And it doesn't have to be important to them. They could be thinking like, girl, you could do that while I'm talking to you. And you enforce it again. This is the broken record technique. It's enforcing your boundaries repeatedly so that they know that you're not going to bend, you're not going to fold. I said what I said and I meant it. And if you respect me and you love me enough, then you're going to honor the fact that I'm trying to set this boundary. And I did say that I'll talk to you tomorrow or whatever you think that is going to be a good time for you guys to reconvene. That's the broken record technique. And that's also a way to exercise saying no without feeling guilty. Because if you say it 3 times, you shouldn't have to say it more than 3 times. But if you say it 3 times or any time more than 1 time, it has to get through to them. And if it doesn't get through to them, again, it shows a lack of respect. It shows a lack of care, or genuine concern. And so that's something for you to make a mental note of, and you don't even have to get back. If you peep something like that and you feel like, yo, that's crazy because I'm sitting here telling you how I'm feeling and you still stuck on how you feeling, like your feelings, you know, take precedence over mine, cool, noted. I'm not going to offer myself in the same ways moving forward just because I realize the lack of respect that you have for me and my feelings. But let's move on. So for the third, like, I guess advice or tip that I would give in terms of prioritizing saying no without guilt is for you to go ahead and make a priorities list. And I feel like you don't have to do this on a consistent basis if you don't necessarily feel the need to. But in terms of your goals, write your goals and list them in ranking of high to low priority. And when you list high and low priority, I guess you could also go a step further in saying how long you feel like it's going to take to achieve these goals, or how much time do you need to dedicate, whether it be daily, weekly, monthly, for these goals to be achieved. After you do that, I say dedicate 80% of your time to what you absolutely need to focus on. And then the 20% of your time can be to tend to the needs or the wants and the desires of others that you know you normally feel obligated to be with, to help, to hear out, to whatever. 80-20. So all the things that are on your priorities list, get 80% of your attention, 80% of your time, any percent of your focus. And if you feel like you aren't giving 80% to those things, then you don't have the 20% to offer the things that aren't on that list. This is going to be a game changer for me to implement in my own life, because balance is something that I feel like I've genuinely struggled with. Like, I think it's hard for me to really prioritize things because I struggle with really like being honest about what's a priority and how much of a priority certain things are. But I feel like if you really do this, then, and we can check back in at a later date for those of us that implement this, but if you really do this and you notice, like, you feel a sense of relief, you feel a sense of, I wouldn't say accomplishment, but I guess for lack of better words, accomplishment, because now you're dedicating more time to the things that you know you need to get done, and you're not, you know, spreading yourself too thin by trying to be there for this person but also be there for yourself, and help this person but also help yourself. You're now focusing on doing what you need to do, showing up in the ways that you need to show up for yourself. And when you have the time and you have the capacity, being there for others, I feel like that's going to be a game changer, and just helping us to learn how to balance our lives. And in having a clear understanding of our priorities, I feel like this will also help us in being able to reframe the way that we perceive no, the meaning of no for ourselves, because we'll realize that saying no isn't necessarily being selfish or being mean. It's being thoughtful for ourselves and putting ourselves first, because obviously if you're saying no to one thing, you're saying yes to something else. So you should be saying no to something that doesn't really ultimately serve you in order to be able to say yes to the things that are on your priorities list. So this may look like you learning a new skill set on your priorities list, and this is probably a high priority for you because maybe you want a new job, or maybe you want a side hustle, but part of that side hustle requires you to acquire a new skill. And your friend calls you and she's like, hey girl, I need somebody to ride with me to go pick something up that's like 50 minutes away. Okay. Perhaps you don't feel like you're necessarily doing anything, you're just learning this skill. Oh, but you can come back and learn this skill when you get home from riding with her, or you can put this off for tomorrow. Oh, I've already dedicated 20 of the 30 minutes I said I was going to dedicate to learning this new skill, so that's okay, I can go ahead and ride with her. No. By saying yes to one thing, you're saying no to the other thing. And in this instance, by saying yes to riding with your friend, you will be saying no to learning that skill set. Now you're prolonging how long it might take for you to be a pro, or just good enough to get the job that you want, or good enough to start making money off of this thing. You're prolonging it. And the more flexible that you are with your boundaries, the less time that you're going to give yourself, the less dedication you're going to give yourself, and the longer it's going to take for you to achieve what you want to achieve, because you're not putting the boundaries that you need to in place. So just keep that in mind. And to close, I'll just reiterate that saying no is a part of self-care. It's about showing yourself the respect that probably nobody else shows you. And you know, they say you show others how to treat you by the way that you treat yourself. So if you want others to respect your time, if you want others to take you seriously and feel like, I can't walk all over this girl, she respects herself, I can't, you know, expect too much from her because I know that she has a lot going on and she's not going to bend over backwards to please me or to meet my needs, because she knows that her needs are important, or she values herself and she sees her needs as important, then cool. Allow people to feel however they may feel, but the respect is definitely going to come because it's understood that you're respecting yourself. And so I'll leave you with that. If you feel like this is something that definitely resonated with you or will resonate with anybody that you love or care about, please share, please like, or please subscribe. And of course, I wish everyone a great weekend and a great week ahead. Definitely, if you have anything to add to the conversation, leave it in the comments. Or you could tag me on Instagram to let me know how you feel. Are you implementing anything discussed today? And I would love to have an even deeper conversation about just how to overcome our people-pleasing era, learning to say no without guilt, and understanding that by saying no, we are showing ourselves the love and the respect that we deserve that we might not get from anyone else. Alright guys, that's all from me. Toodles!